This is Looks Good on Paper, a podcast from Willow about flipping the script on traditional hiring. I'm Ian Chohan, and every episode I put big voices in hiring and work culture through 3 quick-fire questions, speed dating style, to get the habits, trends, and ideas that matter. Hi, everyone, and welcome to your latest episode of Looks Good on Paper, powered by Willow. I'm reporting in from Toronto, and it's really cold. We woke up to tons of snow here today, and I'm a little frigid beside the window, but I'm so excited and expect to be quite warmed, I'm sure, from this conversation with our latest guest. I'd like to welcome Gillian Emerson to the podcast. Gillian is the head of talent and partnerships at Toast, where she's helping reshape how tech companies hire by making equity a competitive advantage. Gillian was one of Toast's first employees, and she helped build a recruiting function from the ground up. So excited. I love what Toast is doing across Canada, across North America. I think, one thing I did mention before we jumped on here, Gillian, and we can dig into this more, is, how tough it is to be a woman, first and foremost, in tech. And I love the mandate that you have. Love to hear from you. What did I miss in the intro? How did you get here today?
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me. It's very sunny and very warm in Calgary. I don't know why we've traded. Normally it's cold and freezing, but Calgary is very sunny and nice today. Yeah, thanks for having me. Basically, I came to Toast right as we were beginning, kind of like by chance, which is what a lot of people in talent acquisition say. I did my undergrad actually in Ontario, and I did that in psychology, and then moved back home to Calgary, did my master's in management. And then kind of was going through the motions, was thinking, okay, consulting, that seems like the natural path for someone to go who's doing a master's in management. Was not successful in that at all. Took a step back and was like, okay, let's think about school. Let's refocus on that. And then a project came up. Toast was just launching, and they were participating in a project called the Propel Project through U of C. So they get a 50-hour project with a student. I saw their website. It was just like the baseline of a website. They hadn't launched membership yet. It was very vague on like the whole project in general. And I was, sign me up. And so signed up for that, put in my kind of like resume and cover letter and all of that. And then luckily was selected and just was helping out with everything from the beginning. Whatever projects that they needed help with, setting up kind of like surveys and questionnaires, feedback. It very quickly spiraled into going into recruiting. Obviously, having a background in psychology, I always had talent acquisition or recruiting in the back of my mind. So really started to get involved there. And then it spiraled and blew up into something else. And so we've been really successful over the last 3 years helping companies hire more women onto their technical teams. And I've been growing alongside April Hickey, our CEO, to help build up that recruiting function on the one side of the business. And then on the other side of the business, we have a membership that supports women in tech.
Oh, I love that so much. It just, again, makes me so happy. 10, 12 years ago when I was first starting off, first of all, I come from a background that's non-tech, and I jumped in from government, and I didn't know what I was in for. And so,
Oh, yeah.
it's you, and now you probably know too, right? Where it's just, you're not prepared. And I think, 10 years ago was vastly different. But I think, we're seeing more women, hopefully, in STEM moving into these roles. But you did actually say something before we jumped on that you're seeing a little bit of a drop off, or Toast has noticed that with tech, women in tech?
Yeah, I think in general, it's great to get women in. But at the end of the day, you need to be retaining them as well. And so part of what we're seeing is women coming into tech, but then dropping off a few years into that. It might be around like certain ages, which is really unfortunate. So we are very passionate about building systems from obviously the top down into like seeing representation from leadership, but also embedding diversity into processes across the board, from the application all the way up to interview to offer, and then to long-term support to help support more of that for women.
Oh, I love that so much. I mean, we will dig into it in a bit about that process, but why don't we hop into the first question? So, what is the biggest hiring mistake companies keep making, even though it's clearly not working?
Yeah, so tagging on to that, I think Obviously, my short answer is not hiring enough women, not having diverse pipelines, but that is a much bigger problem than just not making that hire when you're looking at all of your candidate pools. So, part of why we exist is to help companies diversify their pipelines. We always start it with an intake call. Help me to understand like what goes beyond the job description. What are you really looking for?
Yeah.
But then also, what does your team makeup look like? Who is leading this role? How many women are on the team? What does promotion cycles look like? And all of that. And then embed that into our process so that we can make sure that our candidates are informed from the beginning.
Yeah.
However, the biggest problem that we're seeing with our clients right now is coming to us and companies in general coming to us saying, I really want to hire more women. I have a team of all men. People are quitting, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And that's great to have the initial kind of like need and want to hire more women because that's what we need to help
Mhm.
like work with a company. We have had companies come to us saying, I'm struggling to attract women. I don't know why I can't retain them or hire them. But then they say that their working hours are 60 hours a week, and that's the absolute expectation. And there's no flexibility. And women are sitting there being like, okay, what if flexible work matters to me? What if I want to pick my kids up? And that's where they can end up seeing like the better results. And so companies, although it's great to have the initial want to hire more women, them not setting up those processes through to the retention model as well
Mhm.
is enforcing some of that drop off rate that we're seeing.
Oh, absolutely. I think obviously one big thing. This is a global podcast, and then we talk to people from all over. But just given what's happening in Canada, like we're seeing a return
Mhm.
to office mandate, and I'm already seeing that this is shifting so many of the way that women work in the workplace. Friends of mine, colleagues, it changes how you interact with your job, and you know we've seen that with some big tech companies in America as well, and I think sometimes it is almost a ploy in some cases to get rid of some of those
Yeah.
because people will voluntarily leave. But like as a woman in tech, I know that this actually increases the barriers to hiring those more right diverse
Mhm.
teams by requiring things like this.
Yeah, totally. I always say I think what matters is the choice. I think when people are mandated to do one thing versus another, that's when you cross kind of like the uncomfortableness of it.
Yeah.
I always wonder if Toast had an office, would I go in? I think I would occasionally, but
Yeah.
given how social a recruiting job is for me as somebody who's an extroverted introvert, I get exhausted by like the social interaction all day, every day. So being at home is my saving grace. I think as long as you give people the choice in how they want to set up their working model, that implies more trust as well. As long as you're hitting your KPIs and what you need out of your job, it shouldn't matter where you're doing that from. So I think the choice is what's really important. It's also very interesting when we've hired internally for like our own Toast team,
Yeah.
the amount of candidates that we get from the US because we are a fully remote company has been very interesting for us.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, it's just like, that choice idea is so important. And this is something that we really believe in our ethos at Willow. It's the company, but then also within the ethos of the podcast itself is that we're seeing a lot of people talk about that idea of like, give candidates first and foremost the choice to choose how they present themselves and show up. But you're taking that step farther where it's like how they show up at work by the policies that you offer. And that actually will attract those good candidates, potentially, the ones
Yeah.
that you're looking for. Awesome. All right. And on to question number two. What's a hidden bias companies unknowingly have, even when they think that they are being progressive in their hiring?
Yeah. So we do things a little bit differently, probably than a normal recruiter that would do. So we
Yeah.
do something a bit different in that we present all of our candidates by way of unbiased profiles. So we take away company names, where they've worked in terms of companies and countries, the candidate names, school names, and then specific years of experience so that no gaps can be
Wow.
inferred. So it takes a lot of getting used to with our clients. And again, going back to the last question, I find that there's a lot of initial need and want to hire more women. However, when we start bringing in our processes to be unbiased and to take a different approach to it, it can bring up a lot of uncomfortableness for our hiring managers. And
I
there
bet.
is a lot of kind of like rethinking how you've done it in the past and questioning yourself, why do I look for this? Why do I always look for company name? What am I really getting out of that?
Okay.
Other than company size, industry, which is all very important. Honestly, company name has been the most like controversial out of all of that
Yeah.
because even me, when I'm looking through our candidates, I am looking for certain size of companies. But what can you do with getting kind of like the minimum amount of information there? And so we try and bring that in and give them as much information as they need to make a decision without having all of it. It's a lot of massaging
Yeah.
and it makes my job difficult sometimes, but I like a challenge. And we've been able to be really successful with it, with a lot of hiring managers coming back and saying, yeah, I didn't even think that I was always looking for these things. And it's been really reshaping my thinking process.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much. I actually did not know that about what you guys did. I did not realize that you did
Hmm.
that, and I love it because, we know what the next question will be when it comes up, but before we get there, I need to talk to you about how this question, number 2, the
Yeah.
number 1 answer I get from my guests is pedigree, and the fact that you
Mm,
scrub those titles, like, oh, the company names, that's amazing.
yeah.
It almost evens the playing field in such a different way. I love it.
Yeah. And we, uh, obviously, when you're thinking about recruiting, getting those placements, getting that all across is of top of mind. But
Yeah,
if we've got a client that is simply like not aligning with our values and we're seeing way too many red flags pop up, we are
yeah,
no strangers to saying, hey, look, we don't think we can work with you until we figure this out. That's
yeah,
the very end step of the process. But the first thing is, hey, have you rethought this? Tell me why you need this. Really working with them throughout it so
mhm.
that we can get to that end goal while also upholding like our values as much as we can so that we're like putting our best foot forward and placing women in these companies.
Oh, that's so cool. Pedigree is the thing that really kind of blinds people, right? Like,
Yeah.
they worked at the Facebook, they worked at the Fang, all of that stuff. And then you think about this and it's like, is that even the right fit for the team? You get
Mhm.
blinded by this idea that like, "Oh, I got that big shiny name and this person's gonna do it." But, like, those companies have different needs. They're massive companies. If you're a scale up, you're not gonna use that person in the way that they know how to be used, or you might not be able to give them what they need internally as
Mhm.
well. So, you're almost shooting yourself in the foot in the long run if you keep opting for those candidates.
Yeah, 100%. And that it bleeds into everything that we do. I wouldn't be here if pedigree was something that was so important with background of experience. Truly, like they took a chance on me when it came to hiring me, and otherwise I wouldn't be here regardless. And like the trust, the mutual trust from like same thing that we've been talking about from the beginning of the interview process and choosing your work environment, trust that they're the right person to get the job done and figure out the different ways in which you can evaluate that through kind of like the unheard of stuff that like the what you wouldn't think about or the non-technical skills or maybe it is the technical skills that come through not through schooling, by being self taught, and kind of just like expanding the out of the box thinking.
All right, and
Yeah.
on to our third question, which we kind of touched upon already. But if you were suddenly to remove CVs or resumes from your current hiring process, what would that look like?
Yeah. So that's it. It's an interesting question. Obviously, for us, for like our own toast process, we were
Yeah.
removing that already for
Yeah.
working with our clients. When we're hiring internally, I then have to take that hiring manager standpoint and be like, okay, what am I really looking for here?
Yeah.
What is the most important? What I always like to do for when we're doing an internal hire is think about the top 3 things that we're looking for, not to get attracted by the shiny stuff. And that 100% has happened to me in the
Me
past,
too.
especially when we did our first hire on the talent team of being like the fan companies and oh my god they worked here, they want to work for Toast, what?
Yeah.
But taking a step back and really understanding like what's important. For example, for one of our recruiters, having contingent recruitment experience we have found has been very important for us, just in recognizing like the speed and understanding the general process involved with recruiting contingently. And then Other parts of example, like some form of like seniority with it, examples of past success with time to hires, how many hires, cadence that we've seen, and then otherwise trying to just like limit the noise. We try and do something different each time we hire someone. The last one, for example, we put out a LinkedIn post and wanted to just like extend it to the network. If you know a kick-ass recruiter, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to
You
swear.
know?
If you know a kick-ass recruiter, tag them below.
Yeah.
Something like that. Just to bring in kind of like those different perspectives. We want the tried and true of working with them in the past and recognizing those really awesome people that might not be out there.
I always love that network effect as well about doing that, where it's like
Mhm.
friends of friends might even include bring someone in, and hopefully you're not like hiring with that bias of like, oh, I know this person through this,
Yeah.
but it does open up that wider net to people that you might not have already been able to get in front of, right?
And we were shocked. Like, we were shocked at the amount of people and the interest that came through with that, and I was like, "Oh my god, there's so many amazing people out there that we have never worked with, come across, and they might be even be in the same city as us." And so, just kinda taking a different approach with it has been important. I challenge people to rethink how they evaluate resumes and how they typically look at those kinds of things when they're going through these processes, to take a step back and question, why do I look for certain companies? What
Yeah.
am I looking for out of those? What are the true needs that I need out of those companies, and then go from there.
Yeah. No, I really I appreciate that so much. Seeing it's such an interesting place that Toast sits, right? So you're seeing internally, you're seeing all these other companies. So I think it's
Mhm.
I just really already applaud the system that you have been building with the companies you're working with because, for some people, and this is one of the things that we've seen, it's like the idea of decentering the resume or the CV from the practice is kind of scary, right? We're just so
Yeah.
used to it, along with all the other things you talked about, like scrubbing the name and understanding, like, where they come from, all of this stuff. Like, I think what's really interesting to see is that Toast has done this in practice and at scale now, and it is actually working. And I
Yeah.
love that type of story. I love that we were able to tell that here.
And we, with every single like first submission that we have a like detailed explanation of why we do it the way that we do. What are the biases that come up? Socioeconomic bias, like foreign work experience bias. Why are we doing these things? And I think anytime that you can attach a why to it, it helps people expand their minds and their thoughts around it. So that's what's been really helpful with us, I would say.
I love that. Really quick, what type of trends do you see in hiring and recruiting and sourcing for 2026?
So we chatted briefly about this at the start. The obvious answer that everybody is saying right now is AI. How are you using AI? How is it like better serving you in your process? And for sure, there are so many amazing ways that we have used that. However, what we have been having a lot of conversations about internally within our Toast community, on LinkedIn, all of that is this AI fatigue. We bring back personalized approaches to hiring while using it in the best way possible. We are also looking into, for this year, it's going to be of top of mind for us, is how our AI hiring process is affecting women as well. So,
Oh,
um, I read a really interesting article recently about how using AI to hire is hiring people based off of previous successful hires. And when your previous successful hires are white men from these certain backgrounds, then your AI is going to like specialize towards that
oh,
in picking those resumes that demonstrate the kind of like matched background of skills experience to making those hires. And who does that limit? People that aren't there already. And so we want to bring it back to making it a people first approach always.
yeah.
Use AI tools to like help speed up your process for sure. Understanding at the core of it, why aren't you hiring women? Why aren't you retaining women? And how can we help introduce you to great people through people? But really, the AI fatigue is becoming very real across the board, I think.
Oof, I know. Working in marketing, a lot of pushback. There's a big shift. I think it's just it's in everything, and we see
Mhm.
the positives. It's interesting though, as well at Willow as well. We see a lot of companies asking for AI, but they don't think they really understand what it means. So I think there's both ends of it. I think that the human things are going to get more human this year. The intentionality of AI usage is going to change significantly. I think you've touched upon that brilliantly as well. Like, I love that Toast is thinking about those types of things and how it actually impacts already, marginalized
Mhm.
candidates, right? And giving them access in such a different way. Gillian, this has been so lovely. I don't know how the time flew so fast.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for your thoughts and insights. I'm so excited to share this with the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining me on Looks Good on Paper, powered by Willow. If today's 3-question sprint gave you something new to think about, hit subscribe and share with your network, because in hiring, and really in life, it's never just about what looks good on paper.